time has come for the first panel of the day. I was talking with Paul yesterday about the partnerships and the collaboration that the blockchain and crypto industry needs with the institutionals and of course with the Web2 companies in order for it to grow and to achieve that 1 billion user kind of adoption that everybody's preaching about. So we all saw what happened in 2021 with the NFT hype. Since then, Borderless Club, the blue chip of the NFTs, is down 90%. But this doesn't mean that NFTs are worthless. So here comes the question. Is it worth it to integrate NFTs in your company, in your story? Is it relevant? What are the narratives that we are expecting for 2024? For that, I would like to invite on stage today's guests, starting with Daniel Luca. Let's welcome him with a huge round of applause. From EdenBlock. Let's also welcome Pierse from Borderless Ventures. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody. Come on! Sorry? We will get the mics in just a second. In the meantime, let me welcome Stefana Banciu from lead at Astrarizon Ventures. And Cristian Florea, product engineer at Outlier Ventures. What? I'm a horrible person. Oh my God. Sorry, my brother. Sorry, my brother. And of course, let's welcome to the stage the moderator of this panel, Robert the Groot. Let's welcome him with a huge round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Morning, or afternoon by now. So, thank you all for coming. Today we're going to talk about investments. We're going to talk about support as every founder needs, and specifically from the honored guests we have here with us today. And I'd like to start with a short intro by each of them about what do you do, what does your firm do, and what are you basically looking for as well. These representatives will be here all day and tomorrow as well. If you're a founder, if you're raising, and if you're interested to meet them and pitch, there will be a networking moment tomorrow at 5:20 at the WACME stage upstairs, where you can meet with them one-on-one to go through your own pitch if you want to. So I'd like to start with you, Daniel, on that side, please. Yeah. Or, well, we have the mic. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hello. Hi. So I'm Daniel Luca. I'm a very deeply technical investor. I started as a developer, as an entrepreneur. This was before doing blockchain. And in 2017, I started working full-time in blockchain. I went through Consensus, which is one of the largest Ethereum companies, where I built an analytics platform. I did security auditing, still in Consensus as part of Consensus diligence. After that, I built my own security company. I also created a stable coin. And now I work with EdenBlock, where I lead tech. EdenBlock is a crypto VC in blockchain.
Hey everyone, I'm Victor, product engineer at Outlier Ventures, got a background in computing science. I was a full stack developer for a couple of years and then I started to work into Web3, was part of IBM's blockchain division at first, and now I'm basically also a tech lead at the largest accelerator in the space, got a portfolio of more than 300 companies, and only last year we worked with more than 100 founders.
Ethan Pierce. Wow, I'm loud. You don't even need this. My loud American voice just throws it right out there, doesn't it? So, I built a bunch of digital marketing and e-commerce companies in the US, France, and Singapore. Then I became a managing partner of a fund in Hong Kong and Singapore for a couple of years. So that's kind of where all that came from. And today I have Borderless Ventures, which is based in Singapore and Tallinn in Estonia. Which is actually, I do syndicated investments, which we can talk about maybe if that comes up or whatever, but basically instead of having a fund that I deploy into things, I allow you to group all of the $1,000 to $100,000 tickets that are roaming around into one single investment, because generally when you're raising capital, you have to say no to all the small tickets. But it's not crowdfunding, it's venture capital. And so I do 2 to 3 of those a month. And that's basically the investment side of that. And then there's the other stuff that keeps me in the space, like the NFT Factory, which is kind of the Web3 kind of headquarters in France of the ecosystem, and a bunch of other things. I get to come speak at 80 of these things a year, which gets me to meet lots of wonderful people like you around the world, based in Paris. And I'm excited for a fun conversation. I love Outlier, so that's a fantastic thing. And so I'm excited to learn more about what you guys are doing and have this chat.
Cool. Hi everyone, I'm Stefana. I'm partner and growth lead at Astrarizon Ventures. Astrarizon that is focused as a VC on backing projects, on really helping builders, but on the other hand is also really focused on other verticals, such as owning an auditing arm, outsourcing arm, and actually a product. So we also have a product, a payments company, Pulse Our Money. So we are hyper-focused on development as well, because we're actually builders, contributors, engineers. We've worked with builders, we've been around builders, and right now actually backing those builders and helping founders to really achieve their goals.
Thank you. So my first question would be, as we are at NFT Bucharest today, what is the relevance of incorporating NFTs in your projects? And what's your view on NFTs and their relevance for your investment thesis? And I'd like to start on this side and with you, Stefana. Also, I'd like to note this is a discussion, of course, among the panelists, but also with you. So I'm looking for your questions as well during this session. If you have a question, please just raise your hand and you'll get the mic. And there might be a reward. So, yeah.
Cool. So that's a really good question. And when it comes to NFTs and the whole NFT industry, we've known this industry as, so basically one of the big use cases around NFTs is, of course, around artwork, digital artwork, collectibles, and so on and so forth. But for us, and what excites us the most about NFTs, it's actually how you can incorporate those NFTs in infrastructure projects, how you can build on top of NFTs, how you can actually use the metadata fields within NFTs and kind of bound them to like the technical use cases from, I don't know, interoperability between several chains to like us as a payments company. What we did there, and this is actually a really cool one, we have this vesting module where you can, when there's a particular allocation towards investors, and what we did there, we use NFTs for the investors to be able to claim their allocation within our platform. So basically we encrypted all the information within the NFTs, and investors are able to claim their allocation within our app. And yeah, for us, it's of course about narratives. It's of course about driving those narratives in terms of artwork, and so on and so forth. But we also see NFTs and the whole industry as actually the foundational layer of technology. And there's so much more to NFTs than just art. that's cool. We're riding that wave as well, but we kind of like to look into the infrastructure part.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you know, well, for me, what interests me a lot for the investments is everything Web3, AI, especially Gen AI, creator economy, and sustainability. And there's this interesting Venn diagram where lots of things have all four, or definitely three of them, because of, again, like I talked about just earlier in my talk, this idea of Web3's fundamental value for a lot of things is building community, reducing the intermediaries so that brands or creators can have one-to-one kind of contact with their fans or their customers. And so for me, on the investment side, what I'm seeing, what's amazing is all these startups that are rebuilding things that already exist or coming up with new things where they're leveraging NFTs as a way to construct and work with that community. And that creates a whole bunch of startups that, funny enough, for a panel about venture capital, don't need us because they're able to not only build for their community, but raise money from their community, which is really fun because actually if you don't need to raise money, you shouldn't. But most things when they need to scale eventually do need more capital in order to be able to scale faster. But what we're seeing is a ton of early stage and Series A type companies. So Series A is that big first thing after you know what you're doing and you want to go test it with more people, where that money might be coming from their community. That's really interesting today for creator economy, for other things, all these Gen AI startups, a whole bunch of stuff where there's a lot of people being able to build things like, without changing the topic, but the NFT concept of this is, if you combine Gen AI, no code, Web3, tech stack, and all this stuff together, this year, there will be at least a dozen companies around the world that will be worth $500 million, and they will have 3 employees. In 2025, there will be at least one company worth over $1 billion that will only have 3 to 5 employees, because they are leveraging no code, Gen AI, and Web3. And the Web3 thing they're probably using is NFTs in order to create these relationships and the optimizations and all that. That's why I think it's super fascinating. So for me, NFTs matter in this, but it's the fact that they work with some of these other things that as a group, those technologies are creating enormous opportunities for entrepreneurs, for developers and others to build things that normally they would have to raise a lot of money and have a large team to build, and today they don't.
I would add on top of all of this, because I think all of this makes sense and is very valid. NFTs, we kind of looked at them from the company's perspective towards consumers. But for consumers, I think they have strong value. Like if you look at my picture, it's not my face, it's my NFT. So it's a way of signaling that I'm part of a group. And that creates respect from the other members of the group, and they know how to talk to me, and they know we already have something in common. And this is valuable for the consumers. I think especially for, as you said, Ethan, in Gen Z and Alpha generations, I'm not there anymore, but they don't interact face-to-face as much anymore. So a way to signal and to find your own group, your own peers, is valued quite a lot. I mean, that's why people pay for these expensive images. It's not the actual pixels, it's what they represent.
Yeah. Real life is virtual life now. Yeah. So, this excitement which you described, each of you, with the developments taking place and how NFTs would be part of a larger cohesive infrastructure. What are the upcoming standards or developments which excite you, which have been announced with regards to NFTs or in Web3 in general? Victor?
Yeah, maybe an interesting use case for NFTs, because we had 2 programs in partnership with Farfetch, so the luxury store, and I think a super interesting use case would actually be proving some very high quality objects are actually real, enabled for secondary marketplace through NFT attestation. I also saw that working, as Ethan signaled, together with some other technologies. We see NFC technology being super tied with Web3 nowadays to enable this creator economy, tap into this kind of Web 2.5 market where we're talking about phygital goods, so a digital clone of a physical item, and I think it's just the beginning in this attestation component of the market.
An example that I really like because it's so not tech and yet is a thing that you can solve. There's a startup in Bordeaux called Intercellar that has basically built a marketplace for fine wine and champagne using NFTs, because the reason is whenever you invest, $200, $500, $1,000 into a wine that you're not necessarily going to drink, you're keeping it for its value eventually to drink, but it's an investment, it's a store of value. Two things happen that destroys that asset physically. One is it gets broke whenever it gets moved around, and the second is when it gets moved around, it gets subjected to temperatures that destroy the contents, but you don't know it. And so if you actually digital twin each of those bottles, you do some really interesting stuff where now if you you buy the bottle on their website in their marketplace, it's actually going to stay at the vineyard in a warehouse and never move. And if I want to sell it to you, I sell you the NFT. They don't even know it, but now you are the only one you're the one who owns the bottle. When you want it shipped to you, when you want access, the NFT is what gives you everything. Not a website with a database, with your email, with any kind of information, not a piece of paper certificate. And the reason I think that's an interesting example for NFTs is because we love to talk about tech, we love to talk about techie things, and that's just wine. Like that's a thing, like everything can be so many existing historical business models that suffer from problems of authenticity and problems around ownership. NFTs can come along and really do cool stuff there. And the example I mentioned earlier, if you didn't see it, with Intercellar that's interesting is 60 to 70%, maybe more, of fine wine sold in China is fake. Meaning that $1,000 bottle of whatever it is that you bought, it's very French. It looks exactly like, if you put the two bottles next to each other, you cannot tell the difference. But because one of them is now going to be digital twinned with the NFT, it will sell for 2 to 10 times the other bottle, because the people who buy it are going to know that it's not fake. And if you combine the NFT with an NFC system or other things, you can actually also track on-chain the temperature and movement and stuff, so that you're able to know that this thing has never been, that it's been taken care of over time. I love examples like that because it's NFTs, but it's not really tech. It's just tech solving something out there that we can work with. And everything could be rebuilt pretty much using some of these technologies in that way, which for entrepreneurs creates a ton of opportunity.
Yeah, I love the application of Web3 technology on, I'd say, the outside world. Yeah. You are here as on a VC panel. VCs are mostly known for their support with funding as part of the resources. What other roles does a VC have when supporting startups? Victor, I'll start with you, because you also provide acceleration programs, I heard.
Yeah. So basically, some tips for startups to start with it. I think the technical component is super important. And I tend to see a lot of NFTs being used today, but in comparison with, for example, 2 years ago when the NFT was a mainstream word being on top of their pitch deck, nowadays we see NFTs at the infrastructure layer the same way you would have a token to solve a problem within your solution, but just having it there. So it's not necessarily a consumer thing anymore. It's not necessarily a user-facing application. It feels like it's turning into an infrastructure piece, still super important, and with a lot of new interesting use cases being opened up there.
So basically, when we're looking into projects, right, from a VC perspective, there's so much more that you can contribute actually to a project rather than just the funding part. So I think that in a market that it's accelerating and on a growth perspective, what projects need is actually a trajectory on, how they can grow their business and so on and so forth. And this is also some use cases that VCs should look into. What we're doing on our side is actually contributing a lot on the consulting part, on really being active out there with the projects that we fund and so on and so forth, and also doing research paper, giving the community that sense of, okay, I can look into these projects, I can have a deeper look into it. So ultimately, it's about, you know, like putting that project into the right trajectory.
Could I add a few things? Yeah. Some of the things that we do is we don't help them as much as Outlier to actually build their product, but we then use their products to build other things on top. For example, we have built a company that has NFT collections and is using some of our portfolio companies to leverage them and launch them and do all of that around. So this is great because you can give like great feedback about how they work, what they can improve, and they also have a partner to work with, and they know what things they can improve, and they know what works and what doesn't, and how to create a better relationship in the future.
I'm going to stay with you for a second, because with the evolvement of technology, with the new, let's say, standards being developed and introduced, new risks pop up as well. New type of challenges might occur when you're rolling out new networks or new standards or new use cases. In your case, as tech lead at EdenBlock, what kind of challenges do you spot these days coming in from founders? What kind of risks do you see pop up on the horizon based on current pitches?
So you have a few types of risks. Some are purely technical, like maybe they don't implement the smart contracts really well, or there's some problem there. But you have other things like maybe the platform isn't so well, like for example with Bitcoin ordinals, and I do have a talk about this later, there are lots of small technical problems that don't make it easy for you to launch your own connection, don't make it easy for you to create a marketplace. It's very difficult to create to sell one ordinal for something else. And we do like companies that always leverage what already exists and provide new, simpler ways to build on top. So that is why we like infrastructure companies. That is why we like to invest in this, because then everybody benefits from that.
And I think here, you know, when you're going into like starting a company as a founder, as a team, there are a lot of risks. There are a lot of things that we as a VC should look into it, like from financial risks, operational risks, technical risks, and so on and so forth. But the one thing that I think sets you apart as a founder, as a team, and what we're looking at is how ambitious the founders are, how relentless they are, because you can have a great product, great technological progress, but sometimes what really sets you apart is the amount of negativity and bad things happening to you that you can take on along the way. And this is actually one thing is that's like groundbreaking. Again, you can have a great product, but if you don't have that ambitious and that relentlessness, might be that it's not going to work. So this is something that we're also looking into, apart from the other metrics that we are assessing.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to state I'm looking for your questions as well. Anybody? Anybody? No? I got questions for the next hour if needed, but I want your input on this one. It's okay. Keep in mind, there's a reward involved. Okay. So, Ethan, start with you. I want to hear, what are the best and worst practices for founders? As in, there are quite some here today, so. Yes, which you've encountered when they came pitching.
Wow, best and worst practices for founders. Okay.
Red flags, green flags.
Yeah, no, it's the thing that's interesting for me is, especially if we're talking early stage, because that's pretty much I think what we're talking about here for investments, because this is all new stuff, so you're trying to figure it out. Is that founders? I was just having a conversation with somebody earlier that they've now kind of pivoted and doing something else that's interesting. And inflexibility, flexibility is probably, for me, in early stage, one of the most important things, that you need to be able to realize what you're doing isn't the thing that's going to work or that's not going to last, so that you continue to, so that you survive, so that until you finally figure out what the thing is that the market is needing from you that you can build to. Because if you keep paying enough attention and you keep iterating on what you're doing, eventually you're going to tag into that thing that actually scales. But if you stick to one thing, and while that's super important if you're on the right thing, if you're not, because the actual thing, there's a great TED talk on this, the actual thing that measures success for early stage Series A type companies on up into being successful tech companies is timing. It's not founders, it's not ideas, it's not how much money they raised, it's none of that, because all of that stuff, you see companies that have it that fail and companies that don't have it that succeed. But if you're too early to market, you have to spend all your money and time convincing people something matters, and usually you die before the market gets there. If you're too late, you're either number 2, number 3, or number 10. Number 2 and number 3 can still make a lot of money, but at a certain point you miss the opportunity. So the ingredient there is being able to stay flexible enough to understand that maybe the thing you're working on is going to change the world, but it's going to change it 10 years from now. And so if you keep to that thing, you're either going to run out of capital or just run out of energy and not get there. But maybe there's things that you can build in the meantime that will build even more. And when you look at the first pitch deck of so many of today's biggest scale-ups and unicorn startups, they were not working on the thing that made them the company you know today. They were doing something else. Or something that at least was a very immature version of the thing that they eventually figured out was what the market wanted. And so for me, I think the most important thing founders can do is to stay alert to feedback and to what the market is actually asking so that you build the thing that can actually scale.
Definitely. Definitely agree with the timing and staying actually consistent towards the point where you actually going to go exponential. So not wanting from the beginning to grow exponential, but actually being consistent. And I would add one more thing that I think from a founder's perspective, it's really one of a best practice, let's put it like this. It's first, you take off the wrong people off the bus, you take on the right people, and then you decide where to go. So I think this is really crucial when you are deciding on the direction and where you want to go. You first need to make sure that you have the right people on the bus.
I'd like to balance this a little bit because I do think you need to stay flexible and to adapt. But the original vision or the core of it still has to be there. You don't have to lose that one. If you have founders that with every bull and bear market, they are trying to pivot and to change their business too much, that's not a good idea. They're not there to solve that specific problem. They are there because that's the hot thing, and now it's a different thing. So I'm not contradicting you in any way. I'm just trying to balance that because there's a fine line that
you shouldn't follow trends. You should figure out what the reality is that you're building towards, which is not the same thing. But you're exactly right. Just going, oh, that's cool, let me do that. Oh, wait, I have a platform that's doing NFTs. Now I need to do Bitcoin ordinals, and those are going to be shit in 5 months. Maybe that's a bad idea, or whatever that is. Or maybe they won't be. But the point is if you, I'm not advocating chasing that, but I do think that's really, it is important to. If your first idea is the right one, then stick with it. But if the market keeps telling you you're wrong, maybe you are. And so it's just to stay open to that. Definitely not to flip-flop. On the hiring thing, though, that's probably, if I wasn't going to say what I said, I would say hiring. Because startups are 2 people. Then they're 5 to 10. Then they're 10 to 30. Then they're 30 to 60. Then they're 100 to 200. Then they're 200 to 1,000. And then they're 1,000 to 10,000. And each one of those steps is funding and scale. And if you hire the wrong people at each of those steps, it all falls apart. You either hire the best people every time you can whenever you're going from 0 to 200, or you'll never go from 10 to 1,000. Because at some point, that weak link you hired will manage people and will be a piece of crap. They will just be a bad manager, or it won't work. And so you have to be just relentless in hiring and firing to build the team that can scale a company to success.
A players should hire A players because B players always hire C players, right? Yeah. Okay, so we have team, we have timing, we have pivot readiness, and a little bit of clairvoyance. Okay. Any additions?
I would like to add one more So when you're a founder, you have to be in the driver's seat, and you have to be really careful on the things that you give into the company, and be aware that you are responsible for the culture. Whatever happens to that company from a culture perspective, you as a founder are responsible for that. So this is something that maybe not this is something that each and every founder should be aware of when starting a company.
Okay. Then from the other side, dear panelists, I like you. What are your red flags? What are the red flags with VCs that founders should be aware of? Not specifically your company, of course, but to the sector. Because if you don't negotiate properly, if you don't, things can happen. So.
Yeah, sorry for that. So basically, something we tend to see nowadays is, especially with this, let's say, starting bull runs, we see a lot of VCs actually pushing very early stage startups to prepare for a token or to already have some kind of pre-launches, pre-sales for that. And it's not that we don't like tokens, but I think it's important to first, as you were just saying, build a strong founding team, build a product, have some kind of MVP, and then look in the token. Because if you have a token and then you don't have a good product, at the end of the day, in a couple of months, in a couple of years from now, all the investors will suffer together with the team, so that would be a waste of time. So although we love tokens, I think a very big red flag is going for a pre-seed round, right? You're just two people, you're trying to build something, and the VC is telling you you actually need a token if you want them to invest.
Okay, so if they're pushing for a token too soon, that's a red flag. Okay, what else?
I can keep talking, but I don't want to hog the mic. There are two things I think it's important to know as a founder in that. I think first is there's more money out there than you need. It's just really hard to get, which means you need to be careful eventually who you end up taking it from. You think you don't have any, you need money, so you just want to take it from anyone, but eventually the game that scales good companies is taking the money from the right people. There is venture capital, that's funds who've raised money from other people to give to you. There's family offices, so big historical, companies like the grocery store in Romania or whatever. Maybe the people who started that have a fund because those families have lots of money, so they invest into things. Now you have lots of community funding, whether it's syndicated investments or other things. There's lots of money out there, grants from the government, all kinds of stuff. So I think the first is to realize there is a lot of potential money out there to look at to make sure, so figure out what money you should actually take. The second is, when you do take the money from a place, it's great if A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz wants to invest in your startup, take the money and run. Like, that's a great thing. But there's a huge difference between the junior associate who wants to back your company and Mark Andreessen who wants to back your company. Because if you're not, both of them give you the money, but if you have a partner who doesn't have any network, doesn't have any experience, or doesn't know anything about your company, they're only going to give you money and not the extra thing that helps you scale your company, network reach, specific market experience, whatever that is. And so I'm very American in my version of venture capital, which is entrepreneurship driven. Most partners in venture funds in the United States are entrepreneurs who have built a company, sold it, and become VCs. And I like a model where your investor can bring you more than just money, because eventually you can get the money anywhere. I know most people raising funds in early stage are like, shut up, you're an idiot. But the reality is there's plenty of money out there. The issue is you're either not ready for it or you're not talking to the right people. Once you start getting the people who want to give you money, take it from the right people who can actually build your company.
Thank you. I think that pretty much is a good summary. Yeah. So in summary, talk with as many as you can to find out which is the right fit. So if you're here this week, talk with all of them.
If you're losing hope,
yes.
All the big things, like an Uber or things like that, a lot of them talked to hundreds of funds before they got a first investor.
Yeah.
Now, part of that is also because their pitch evolved over time and matured because they were listening to the feedback and things got better that they were pitching. But it's also a question of, don't lose hope, this takes time. Money shouldn't be easy to raise, I actually think, because it teaches you something in the process and makes your startup better by doing that. But don't lose heart if you're trying to raise money. Keep working at it, but make sure that you're also making your thing better so it deserves the money.
Imagine it like dating, but getting into a marriage at one point. So, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Victor, Ethan, Stefana. And give them a round of applause, people. Thank you.